Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at a scenario where Iraq forms an empire. So, here, this is Iraq. Wait, I'm trying to draw it. The nation that once tried to form an empire. It once tried to do this scenario. But, well, they didn't want that to happen. The person in this region was like, no. So, yeah, we never got to see an Iraqi empire. They tried it, and today we're going to make them get one. So, let's see what happens. Okay, so Iraq is still fairly strong country. It is a little bit weak though for the insurgencies happening in this region. Of course, the north with the Kurds, they do everything in this region. This whole greater region here. But they do have a lot of oil down here. They've got like a really tiny coastline, but they can work with it because they're trying to build a huge port from here. But the main country that they targeted back all the way then was Kuwait. But obviously, we're not going to do that again because I don't think they really want to do that. So, the first country Iraq is going to be attacking is Syria. No, Syria. Now, would Syria be able to fight back against Iraq? Yes. Would they also face backlash from would Iraq face backlash? Yes. Which is why they're going to have a friend to do it with them. And that friend is going to be no other nation than Turkey. Yes. The Turkish are here. They want their Ottoman Empire back. So they immediately send troops into the north, which does kind of annoy Iraq, but they are thankful because they have to use less troops. Anyway, Iraqi troops are the first to push over and cut off the south of the country, and they also reach the Mediterranean coastline. Meanwhile, the Turkish ramp up their advance as they want to take a lot of land until the north falls, and now it's only Iraqi troops in the south pushing over here, and Damascus falls, and so does Syria. Anyway, let's look at the peace treaty here. Here is a peace treaty. Unfortunately, for Iraq, they don't get any coastline just yet. But yeah, Turkey has annexed all the north, which is like this region here, Latakia, Aleppo, and Iraq took the south, which is Damascus, Deir ez-Zor, whatever. Okay, next nation on Iraq's list, because they're going straight in through this. They're upset they didn't get any coastline. I think you know what's going to happen. It's Jordan. I don't think you knew that, did you? So Iraqi forces rapidly advanced to Jordan, but we're remembering America is not helping them because they wouldn't have even been able to invade Syria. Well, I mean, the world would have condemned it. Anyway, Amman's been cut off, but Jordan fights a fierce battle in the north. Meanwhile, Iraqi forces absolutely advance down south. There's a fortress in the area down here, which is Aqaba, and in Petra. However, they managed to split the country in half, and the final resistance is over here, as they're receiving supplies from both Saudi and Egypt. And Iraq doesn't really want to blow that up because then they're going to have to fight them. And they're not just ready for that yet. Anyway, they do capture the city, and a slow push on Amman is then they capture Zarqa, and they surround the city, and the city falls, leading to the collapse of Jordan. Now, this will make the border look a lot better, and if you can tell what's going to happen, full annexation, yeah. Iraq fully annexes Jordan, and now this looks pretty good, actually. Next on the list is Lebanon. And I think we already know what's going to happen here. Lebanon will get absolutely steamrolled. However, I do want to give them some credit. It might not be as easy as you'd think, but I still think they'd fall over pretty quickly. And I think this is where some of you might be happy, some of you might not. They're going to declare war on the countries in this region. Both of them. Because there is both of them. That's all I'm saying. No more. Iraqi forces push into this region of the country over here. Push down. Push along the coast. However, we're going to act like they're both really weak countries and America's not helping. So, full annexation again. Gaza, is also annexed. But they're going to Iraq this time. No one else. See how Iraq manages this region. It's pretty cool having the Dead Sea on the map. I like it. That's one thing I like about the new map. As well, also because the borders are thinner and the map is larger, we can have even more details, like more islands, even these little border bits here that came with the map as well. These random little islands off Sicily. It's really cool. Yeah, anyway, Iraq has got a huge coastline now. This is going to help them out. Yeah. Next on the list of Iraq. Now, where can they go from here? Oh yeah, by Turkey. Iraq is going to do something that might piss them off, let's be real. They're going to attack Cyprus, including the bases. The UK is like, whoa, no thank you. But Iraqi forces have already captured the island, and the British don't really want to fight over them, so they're like, you can take them. I don't really care. It's fine. I know they probably wouldn't do that in real life, and anyway, this would bring NATO into the war, so not a good move. But it's Iraq's video, not NATO's. So Iraq annexes Cyprus and Akrotiri and Dhekelia, and they're happy because now they've got a nice base in the Mediterranean. Here's where it gets more difficult, as now Iraq has got all its neighbors are top 30 powers, top 20 even maybe. Got Egypt, 120 million people, not a good move. Saudi Arabia, really strong, got advanced tech, and they also have an alliance with other countries with stronger militaries as well. They have Iran, and we know about Iran. They have a friend over here that could just send them stuff, and North Korea and China, and of course Turkey, who's in NATO, so we don't want to do that. But remember, there is no NATO. But anyway, who are they going to attack? After a while of contemplating, they attack Kuwait because they haven't done that yet. And remember, no American involvement. Iraqi forces rapidly advance, and the country's gone. Because that America, let's be real, they would have got absolutely smashed. And it would have been Iraqi. Now Iraq finally gets more Arabian Gulf coastline, and this Iraqi empire looks crazy. I like it. Looks so good. We're going to put their capital on the map as well. Erbil. Now you can see everything else in this region. Lovely. Here's Baghdad. Nice. Iraq has made their decision. And Iraq has decided they're going to attack Iran. Now, this might be surprising for you. They're going to do it again. They are really in the second Iraqi-Iranian war. This time, they're ready. Iraqi forces rapidly advance into the south, capturing this region over here. Iraqi forces also advance along the border and push up north like here. However, they have a little bit less success in the north, where even Iranian forces start a advance into the country from over here. However, Iraqi forces have far more success in the south. However, Iranian forces do get their head in the game and start to push them back, even reaching the border in some locations. Pushing back like this. So we have something like this on the front line. But of course, Iraq wouldn't be able to do this even with the buff on their own. So, you know, this is going. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkey, Azerbaijan. I think they'll be able to defeat them now. Anyway, Turkey's back to help them again. Turkish forces and Azerbaijani forces push into the north of the country. They immediately... This allows for the Iraqis to expel the Iranians and push back into the north. They all successfully captured this northern region. I think it's also called Azerbaijan. Iraqi forces push back into Iran. Pakistani forces rush along the coastline and head straight to Bandar Abbas, which is quite a big port, so they can't lose that. To be real, the Pakistani Navy's probably already cut this off, so it doesn't mean anything. forces push in like this. And then we might also have some operations from some of these Gulf countries to capture some islands. Like there's an island over here, Abu Musa, that the UAE wants, but Iran claims. No, but Iran occupies. Afghani forces push into the north of the country. So we get something like this. Iraqi forces push into the country. And they're the first to reach Tehran, which is... Oh, it's there. Okay, Tehran. And now they have encircled the city. A long grueling war battle here. The rest of the country is successfully cut in half. This region falls. And now a deep guerrilla advance into this area. The Battle of Shiraz takes place. I think there's a couple of the cities like Yazd. Minab falls. The Battle of Shiraz intensifies. The city falls. And Bandar Abbas is the last city left. And that also falls along with Keshim Island. And Tehran falls, so goodbye. Lovely. Now, let's carve up Iran. Here's that peace treaty here. We now have a very different looking Iran. Turkey, so let's still keep die through. Turkey annexed all of this region here. So a little bit of land over here. Azerbaijan looks huge now. They used to look like this before. So they annexed all of this land to connect the exclave and also get free the Azerbaijani people. So now they have about 30 million people. And could probably be, they're definitely the strongest country in the Caucasus. And could even be a major regional power. Definitely stronger than these two. Iraq looks absolutely huge. Looks really cool, actually. They took loads of land. They took something like this. No. Something like this. All of this land from Iran. Quite a lot, because they did the most. Pakistan took something like this. Or maybe it was like here. I don't know. They took the Balochi regions and as well as a little bit more from Iran. Afghanistan took all of this border territory, and the rest of Iran is left as a new pro-Iraqi, pro-everybody state. Yeah, so everyone else can leave the war, except them, because they're not done yet, are they? Iraq is not done. And now it's time. We are going to have the only alliance in this scenario. Saudi Arabia is attacked by Iran. Saudi's like, whoa, buddy, what are you doing here? And yeah. So, yep, their allies joined the war. This may look weird what I'm doing right now, but I'm just trying to get rid of all the extra bits. 1 pixel parts. Okay, lovely, lovely, lovely. Done. Forgot this bit. Alright. Yeah, Iraq has declared war on Saudi Arabia, but their allies have joined in to help them. And yeah, this will be an interesting war. Immediately, we have Iraqi forces entering from Jordan, pushing down here and collecting the rest of this little bay. They also start to push down the coast a little bit. They also push in here. We could put the major cities on. There's a city here, Al Qurayat as well, but so they capture that. And now a huge Iraqi force is pushing in here. Tabuk is captured. And a solid foothold from Iraq's made in the west. They also have a good front line in here, where the oil is, of course. Iraqi forces push down the coast and start to make a huge front line into the center, capture Khafji, which is over here, and start to head towards the major industrial and important region of Dammam. Now, as you can see, Iraqi forces continue to advance into Saudi Arabia until the Saudi military is organized. And yeah, not very good. Iraq loses all of this portion of their army, good 100,000 men, and they start to get pushed back, reaching the border in a few locations. And the Iraqi offensive becomes a bit disorganized, as now their hold on Tabuk starts to weaken as Saudi forces start to flood into the east of the city. And yeah, it's not going too well until distraction. Iraq has recruited Yemen. And we're going to assume that Yemen's got no civil war, otherwise this wouldn't be very practical. But if they were all, their power, all the weapons they're getting, everything was just united in one front, it'd be not bad, not too weak. Yemeni forces start to advance into Oman and Saudi Arabia. They pushed toward and capture Salalah, major port city. Start to advance rapidly into Oman, and Saudi forces have to retreat back from this front, allowing for a huge Iraqi offensive to retake this area. They also push back in the north, reassert their claim over Tabuk, and start to advance faster than before. Now heading towards the city of Arar, which they do capture, but with a lot of Saudi troops. And now it's not looking good for Saudi. However, they do want to make sure they keep hold of this important industrial area on the Arabian Sea, which is where most of their troops are, as well as protecting Hale and Medina. However, the rest of the front is left quite exposed, which allows for Iraqi forces to push along the coast. Yemeni forces even captured Jazan from Saudi Arabia, which is not a good feat. However, Saudi Arabia and all these countries recruit more men, and then it's not too good, is it? Yemen was just a distraction. However, they aren't really that strong, let's be real. However, they'd be stronger than they are today. Push back all the way to the border. Until we have something like this. This allows for Iraq to free some more areas up and now push towards Medina, very important city in Islam. I just know that. I don't know. They also start to push towards Hale. Used to be the capture of Jabal Shamar or something. And Hale Falls, which is a big blow for Saudi Arabia. It's an important city, as well as Buraida, which is next to it. Oh, they are holding the front. And it's a slow advance, but they are doing it. They capture Medina. It's a big blow for Saudi. This is the 5th biggest city as well. And they start to enter this huge urban area here. Other than Riyadh and Dammam, this is kind of the biggest urban area. Maybe even Medina or something. Or Hale. It's got Jeddah, Mecca, and Taif all in this this little bump over here. Mecca, of course, is the most famous, and then Jeddah and Taif. Iraqi forces see the big problem over here and decide to send their forces over here, and where they make a major naval landing in the north of Qatar. This is not good, because Qatar is not really that prepared, so they could quickly capitulate. They also capture Bahrain and start to push into the UAE from the west. Start to advance rapidly. However, the forces are held here strong to protect Abu Dhabi, which is on this island. This allows for a free up of troops in the west and a new front to open up. Saudi, and they could see the problem here, so they send their troops in for one last attack, and it goes really successful, pushing them all the way back into Qatar and into the top of the country, and push back in the west. There's a pushback over here, capture Medina. However, this is where they start to run out of steam, as they don't really have, well, say Iraq has more farmland and everything. They can more resources, maybe not oil, but they have everything else. Maybe not as much as Saudi, but and then they also, one thing they are able to do is completely kick out Yemen from both Oman and Saudi Arabia, and even start a offensive into northeast Yemen, pushing in fast. They want to kick them out of the war to make sure they can focus all their troops over here. However, they're facing fierce resistance from Yemen, the Yemenis, reaching Al Mukalla. Huge battle over here. However, Iraq sends more forces, this time from the occupied regions. And now it starts to look bad for Saudi Arabia as they gain a foothold in all three of these cities over here: Mecca, Jeddah, and Taif. Which is not good, because if they lose them, then they're basically cooked. They start to advance further into the country. And now approaching the Dammam industrial area and Riyadh. The Iraqi forces make a spearhead through the desert to reach Yemen, which Yemeni forces see and send one huge attack into, which they're able to do. Connect up with Iraqi forces. And this spells the end of Saudi Arabia, I think. Yemen's able to push back from the east and west, and now with Iraqi help, they're able to push over to the coastline, capture Jazan, kick them out from the west, which allows for forces to be freed up and push into the east. And the battle over here is fierce and intense. However, they do capture Taif and Jeddah and Mecca, and Saudi Arabia basically surrenders here. More forces pour into Qatar, and the offensive begins again. Dammam falls, and Saudi Arabia's last industrial area is gone. They push to the UAE. They land in Musandam and Ras Al Khaimah. Push over here, capture Dubai and Abu Dhabi falls. UAE's out, and yeah, it's not great. Oman gets capitulated to Salalah again, and basically, after pushing to Riyadh, all the Gulf countries will surrender. Let's have a look at a peace treaty here. Here's the peace treaty here. So as we can see, Saudi Arabia has been quite damaged by this war. However, they still maintain this major area over here, Hejaz, Riyadh, and core part of the Dammam industrial area. So they could still be alright, but however, they've lost all their north, their oil over here. They've lost their Neom and the western side, and they've lost Arar, Hale, and the north up here. Anyway, Iraq annexes all of this up here. We can now turn this off. And also, Yemen annexed all of this, as well as Jazan. So they did get a major city from this. Yemen looks a lot bigger and probably a bit more powerful as well. Lovely. This is nice. And one last step for Iraq is to declare war on Turkey. Remember, no NATO. And Azerbaijan, you can't think. Oh, no. Yeah. Iraq's been waiting the whole time to do this. They were friends with Turkey earlier, but no longer. Iraqi forces advance into Turkey. They cut off Azerbaijan from the rest of Turkey. And after the majority of the Iraqi army is here, they get rolled over. They also declare war on Georgia and Armenia, which goes very successful. So they're able to overrun the countries and create a new front, a larger front for Turkey to fight on. And now the advance into Turkey, it's slow. However, we're going to say here that Iraq over the last few years has got really strong. And it's now probably the strongest country in the whole region, except for Russia and like Pakistan and India. But they're stronger than Saudi, Iran, and Egypt. And they're maybe as strong as Italy. It's quite a build-up, isn't it? But yeah, that's kind of the rest of Turkey in here. And as the advance slows into Turkey, even a pushback from Turkey, their good old friend is going to join this. The best of friends. Greece. Greece declares war on Turkey, and Turkey's like, oh god. As now Iraqi forces and supplies are rapidly advancing and flooding into Greece. And they've got a pretty strong military, actually. They've got a very good navy, which is as good as Turkey's, so they'll be able to hold this front. People underestimate Greece. They think they get absolutely rolled over by Turkey. Maybe not. I don't think they would collapse the Turkey. Probably would eventually from the land coming in, though. However, they'd be able to maintain these core islands. However, I think these ones over here would fall. Probably. But anyway, we got strong attack. Greece. So Greek forces land in the western coast of here in Bodrum. They advance up to Izmir and the Dardanelles Strait. It's not good. This is a very populated area of Turkey, which is why it's facing so much resistance. And a joint naval invasion from Cyprus is staged between Greece and Iraq. They land over here. And this is very good at opening distraction for Turkey as they head straight towards Ankara. So the Battle of Trabzon begins, and a push around and into Adana begins as well. Here we are. Trabzon's the first to fall, then so does Adana, and now it's a smooth front into Turkey. Greek forces rapidly advance and build up around the Istanbul area. It was very heavily defended. However, Turkey starts to collapse as anti-government protests start to spread. They're very incompetent in this war. After the south coast falls and it's just Istanbul left, they would surrender. Lovely. Let's have a look at the peace treaty here. There's the peace treaty, and whoa. Yeah, that's very different. So you can see Iraq is now a huge country. They've got their ally. Let's probably color them in dark red so we can see a better difference. Yeah, that's better. So we got the Greek Empire over here. Got all the Aegean, and they annexed Istanbul, Antalya, Izmir. Quite big now. Iraq annexed all of the Caucasus, Azerbaijan, and Western Turkey, which is all of this region over here. So the rest of Turkey is made into a puppet state, and yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. Or is it? The last event of the episode is the attack on Egypt. Iraqi forces rapidly advance to the Sinai Peninsula, and they push in and capture Cairo unexpectedly. And from here, Egypt's kind of... Yep, done. I know it wouldn't be that quick, but we're going to make it that quick. Iraqi forces annex all of... Iraq annexes all of this from Egypt and forces the rest of it into becoming its ally with a pro-Iraqi state, pro-Iraqi government. And yep, this part will be given to Iraq. And yeah. Did they capture Cairo? They took a little bit of Cairo. So yeah, here we are. It's our new end of map. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, subscribe. Thank you. Goodbye.